Hey everybody, this is Leonard for the Ultimate Growth Experience podcast. So today, I'm doing something really new. I'm doing a book review. So this is by Professor Jonathan Haidt and Dr. Greg Lukianoff. The Coddling of the American Mind, How Good Intentions and Bad Ideas Are Setting Up a Generation of Failure. So this book is about the reason why the internet generation, like my generation after 1995, and also some parts of the millennials, why they're suffering from mental illnesses, why a lot of kids are prone to more suicide, more health problems in the likes of depression, bipolar disorder, and others. Now, they make a very good case, in my view, because they say that despite the good intentions of the education institutions, of our parents, we are now over-coddling the current generation to a point where they cannot become sustainable and productive adults. And that is part and part true, and I've seen this myself in university campuses. So they go through a number of things. For example, the top 3 things that they mention that is a problem, which is the 3 key mindsets. Number 1 is, what doesn't kill you makes you weaker. Number 2, only trust your feelings. And number 3 is, there's only good people and bad people. The binary thinking. So this is what the authors mention, that these 3 mindsets are ironically killing our generation's way of life and success. So, another thing they talk about, political polarization. Now, I've been talking about this outside of this channel because my majors are politics, history, and economics. Now, if any of you know me personally, then you guys know that I'm very passionate about the subject. So Dr. Haidt and Dr. Lukianoff talk about the fact that in the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans have moved away from bipartisanship. Now it's divisive, now it's name-calling, now it's all about politics for the sake of politics. Not for the sake of the American people, but for the sake of just politics. So it started when Newt Gingrich came in 1994. Instead of cooperating with the Bill Clinton administration, pushing a very dangerous and divisive game. Now we're seeing this still today due to the rise of President Donald Trump and also the lack of responsibility held by the Democrats in the Senate and the Congress as well. And another thing that both authors talk about is the rise of safetyism, the rise of the unnecessary victimhood culture. Now this is not just a result of, it has worked partially because at the moment, due to the more regulatory lifestyle that we have, a lot of our children are safer. We can go out and play, and we can do other things without getting kidnapped and without getting harmed by other people, by strangers. But simultaneously, the point that these 2 authors make is that we're now overprotecting our children. We're not allowing them to do things that they should be doing, which is, for example, going out and walking to school, for example, because your children might get kidnapped. Another thing is don't do risky things. Don't try and hammer the nail. Don't do sports. Don't do rugby. So this overprotective helicopter sense of parenting, despite its good intention for the sake of protecting the kids physically, it's not allowing the children to try and grow, and that is the antithesis to self-improvement. Now, I'm a proponent of self-improvement, and I love it, and I've grown a lot due to that. But Dr. Haidt and Dr. Lukianoff are making the case that you cannot continue to overcuddle your children until they're at the age of 16 or 17. They should be able to become productive and active adults who are sociable. And this is why there are a lot of children today that are struggling socially, because they're always on the computer, always playing video games, always mucking around, doing something stupid, and constantly aiming for the instant gratification. Now, Dr. Haidt and Lukianoff point to the fact that social media has actually increased the level of suicide and mental illness. Why? Because we look at other people who are having good lives, even though they're filtered out into bubbles and edited. And now, I run an Instagram account myself, but I can see what they're talking about. The fact is that you can edit the way that you look through Photoshop and other things, which amplify your real sense of happiness. Or, if I'm honest with you, I'm not happy all the time, even though my social media accounts might show that, for example. And Dr. Haidt and Dr. Lukianoff are simply saying that This amplification is creating a psychological sense of the fact that, oh, my life is shit, my life is this, my life is not as good as this person. This comparison sort of mindset. So this is the effects of social media. Now, despite the good intentions of social media, where we can connect with anybody around the world, which is brilliant, and this is why I love social media to a degree, but it's also harming kids because it's not allowing them to get outside and do actual things. Now, another thing that they both mentioned is the decline of physical play. And they don't mean play as an administrated play, like, managed by the adults, but actual play where kids meet out in the neighborhood and they do their own individual things. Now, for me, my best memory was when I caught up with my friends at Sunningdale Park just outside and just rode the bicycle. We didn't have any parents around looking at us. It was just an individual sense of play. Less and less children are going out and playing. So those are the key problems that they both talk about. So it goes into the idea that you should try to improve yourself. But ironically, this victimhood, this politically correct sort of mindset in universities and also around society is preventing people to try and grow. Now, politically, I'm a centrist, but that's not the point. The point is that you should be going out and doing things that are not harmful to you, but you know it's good and good for the long run. Not the short-term satisfaction, but the long-term satisfaction. For example, me, hitting the gym, meeting up with really good friends, running this podcast, and doing this book review for the first time, and I'll be doing more book reviews in the process. But those are the points. You have to continue to strive for growth and get away from this idea of safetyism. Because at the moment, and I've seen this in university campuses, the safe spaces, the trigger warnings, look, these are good intended ideas, but it's preventing people from actually thinking. Because if you want to grow, you need to think. You need to get exposed to different opinions. You need to try and look at different arguments. But I'm not seeing that. It's becoming a collectivized and tribal institution. Now, this is what Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff talk about, because a lot of professors like Brett Weinstein from Evering College, and even Professor Richard Dawkins was banned from speaking in Berkeley, and even in New Zealand here, Dr. Don Brash was one of my guests for the podcast. I disagree with Dr. Brash's viewpoints, but if you want to learn anything, you need to really listen and try to understand and comprehend the viewer's viewpoint. And Dr. Lukianoff and Dr. Haidt make that case clear. You have to listen and create a sense of viewpoint diversity and opinion-based diversity in universities. Obviously, not just that, politically as well, people are getting more and more divided, and we're seeing a groundhold of a lot of people in the middle just getting fed up with it. And I'm one of the few people. But the point they're saying is that you need to have free speech. You need to follow the University of Chicago model and have a campus that is free speech, unless harm or violence is intended by the speaker, which in that case they should be banned or prevented from speaking. But without any incentive for violence, then no. Those are the cases. So, and also, Dr. Lukianoff says if you want to deal with your depression or even your mental illnesses, the best way to deal with it is the cognitive behavioral therapy, which will change your mindset from thinking about the negative consequences, situational circumstances, to a more positive and gratitude-based way of thinking, because our mindsets can control us and prevent us from thinking rationally. Now, Dr. Lukianoff, Greg Lukianoff, he suffered from depression and he nearly killed himself as well, and it's in the book too, so I would highly recommend it. And it's a very, very good book because it goes to the idea that fragility and victimhood and safetyism is rising around the world, and in particularly the Western world, where a lot of the so-called new entrants to university, the Generation Z kids, are less tolerant because they haven't been exposed to these things before. In fact, when you compare that to 2012, viewpoint diversity was actually a little bit more open-minded, but we're not seeing that at the moment. But it's a very good book. If you would like to learn about why a lot of students are having psychological problems, why we are facing, in a period of where a lot of people are more incentivized to instant gratification, and the rise of safetyism and the rise of political correctness around the world, then you should read this book. So thank you for listening, guys, and thank you for watching, and have a read. I'll put the Amazon link in the description. Have a good day. See ya.